Hi guys, this is Shreya. So today I actually wanted to talk about this trend that I've been seeing a lot and a lot on my Instagram feed and reels, which is are we going analog in 2026? And it was very interesting because this is the first time I sort of like really saw this trend popping up, and it was as mainstream I've seen this getting. And I know we all know the dangers and the horrible effects and the impact of being to online, being to digital, living in the digital world, social media. I think we all know how detrimental and horrible that is for us in the long run, for the world in the long run, for environment, for society, for relationships, for people, for your brains. So I think, yeah, I think there's a lot of talk around it, but this is the first time I saw some sort of an effort to sort of maybe go back to a simpler way of life. And obviously, we are not going analog in 2026. It's not going to happen in a year. Might take decades to get to like a balanced point. But I did feel that it was interesting and worth mentioning because that is how you probably start conversations, right? You sort of notice something, talk about it, sort of maybe push for it a little bit, and then you sort of see what can you as an individual can do to contribute to that. And I mean, the reason and I say when I say that we're obviously not going analog is we can't, right? We exist digitally and we exist online, we work online. I am online right now communicating to you via a social media platform. Everything that we do, we book a cab online, we order food online, we order groceries online, we might book people, a person to come and fix a plumbing online. We meet people online, we meet like people on dating sites. There's like too much stuff that is online. And that brings me to my point that one of the biggest hurdles on why we actually can't embrace the offline analog life is that, I mean, being offline is now the luxury, right? I mean, when internet was new, only the richest had the computers, only the one kid, one house on the block had a sort of internet setup that you can sort of go and explore what internet is. Only the richest or the fanciest kid would have their mobile phone or would get their first mobile phone. So I think definitely offline is a luxury now. And and that is why it's been romanticized so much, right? Because as it is turning into a more luxurious sort of element of society, we're romanticizing it more. And obviously, we have seen certain instances of people sort of maybe using film cameras and digital cameras as the biggest example. Sorry, and we've been seeing people sort of go back to those sort of modes of maybe even like magazines I've heard are coming back. So people are trying to go back to it, but obviously it's just mostly for the aesthetic. I mean, whenever you see someone take a film on a digital camera, it's mostly to tell others that, oh, I have taken a picture on a digital camera, which I know I might be generalizing, but I feel that is the overall sentiment. And but I do feel, I think it is definitely one of the most doable things that we can do. I mean, there's so much we need to do, like bring down millionaires and improve the earth. But I think going analog sounds very realistic because, when you think about it, all you need to do is sort of, um, just buy more physical devices. And, one thing I definitely want to sort of say right off the bat is when we say going analog, I don't want to push or communicate a narrative of buying new stuff, maybe buying a physical camera just to replace your phone, or maybe buying luxury expensive coffee table books and magazines, or buying a new sort of like record player. You don't need to do all of that. I think it's more about it's more than it is about sort of embracing the analog and physical tech. It's also about sort of letting go of the digital selves that we rely on so much. So definitely not about consumption and overconsumption, which is I know very difficult to do easier said than done, obviously you were sort of tempted by those aesthetic photos of record shops and digital vintage cameras at thrift stores, but it's difficult to sort of avoid that temptation. But I think, yeah, definitely, I think we need to sort of explore it. And analog does feel pretty inevitable right now. I mean, it is getting bigger. Sorry, we have stretched digital lives to its limits. Attention fatigue, algorithmic sameness, and endless scrolling have pushed people towards more tactile and slower experiences. Physical media almost as a rebellion at this point, right? It's a grounding force that you need. But it's obviously not going to replace digital. It can't. We are now built on tech, like I said, we do everything. So we need to think analog not as a replacement, but I think maybe as a counterweight that sort of balances us. And when you really think about it, the shift isn't random. It's sort of rooted in the fear that we are sort of slowly de-evolving. Because with tech, we don't need to do basic things like remembering what day it is, remembering your meetings, remembering birthdays, writing something as basic as an email. You are sort of stripped of these day-to-day menial tasks, and I think that sort of obviously, we know that reliance on tech is obviously sort of slowing down our brains and sort of taking away our agency as human beings. So, of course, the belief behind this movement is to reclaim that agency and to remind us that we are human first. And it also is to sort of, it also is an attempt to, explore the more human and social side of being a person. Because we are as antisocial as a society might get. Loneliness epidemic is real, and I think the more we embrace physical and analog media, the more chances and avenues it will give us to sort of explore, talk, maybe just be around other humans, which is very important. I think that's really needed for us. I have seen so many memes of and sort of these reels which are romanticizing just texting and things like that, which is um, and I think we obviously overdo it. We read one thing and then we're like, oh my god, analog is everything. 2026 is the year we're doing this. But obviously, I mean, I think let's be realistic. I think this overcommitment and enthusiasm, which is great to sort of build the hype, but obviously, that's a problem because you overcommit, then you create a hype, and then you realize, we're the only ones doing it. I mean, this just sort of brings you down in so many different ways. But why are people getting into it? why why does uh, why does it feel so liberating, the concept of just going to a park, reading your book, when you're done with the book or bored, listen to a couple of songs on your iPod, grab a taxi manually, not Uber, just you book a taxi, you stop someone, and then you're like, oh, can you take me home? Because it was, I think, it gave you more things to do in your day, even though you might be doing the same amount of things with your mobile. I think you feel like you're doing less. It gives you a better sense of purpose, and it also disconnects us from this whole global social trend cycle, like all this brain rot. um it's so overstimulating being online, right? You're force fed so many colors, so much text. You're watching like 20 reels in a minute. Why? What for? Why are you watching that? Algorithms are deciding what we like. Viral content is shaping our beliefs and our tastes, and I think that's not the right way to sort of live, right? And this whole logic of going analog has a lot of blind spots. Because even if for example, you were to go live, not like like I said, offline is a luxury which most people cannot afford. If I want to buy, if I if, for example, let's say I'm going on a vacation and I want like to take photos. I mean, I don't know if I can afford like a completely brand new film camera for that. Even if I don't have a perfect working camera, my iPhone is pretty old, like my iPhone. But I still will not buy a camera just for taking pictures, because if I were to invest that money, I would just buy a new phone, because that would give me more ROI. I mean, it's a very difficult thing to say that, oh yeah, and why would someone, who might not have the resources, why would they buy a new book every week? They can probably just find it online for cheaper, or maybe even like a free book, like a PDF or something, which I know is not right, but what that is the point, that most of us cannot afford embracing this offline life, because it is expensive. And then it also brings the element of making space for it, like physical space for it, taking care of it, because it's something that you have to sort of just maintain. It's a physical device that you need to take care of. So the objective here is also not to shame people who cannot sort of get into it. But yeah, I mean, let's be honest, we are exhausted. Burnout, comparison, overstimulation, it's really catching up to all of us. Almost everyone is going through this digital exhaustion and just complete hopelessness towards the way that we are moving forward. Um, and I feel that we need more options as society to sort of communicate, come together, and engage in more collaborative societal activities. And I think meeting friends, walking outside, creating anything, you know, it will help you, because your nervous system needs that, your brain needs that, your heart needs that, and it might remember a faint sense of joy that you felt when you didn't have it, or maybe it just knows that there's something better. So I think we need to sort of work towards that. Oh my god, this is getting too deep, but I think yeah, I think that's pretty much what I'm trying to say here. And is 2026 actually going to result into anything? No, I mean, obviously, it's gonna take a while for us to like really, and I mean, there are so many places where digital revolution has just sort of taken off, and India, where I'm from, is a big example for that. And I think different parts of the world are at different stages in their digital journey, and we really need to sort of be mindful of that as well, because we might come, especially some countries might come from a sense of privilege that oh my god, I can't believe you're still watching reels, but it's a very different journey, and it's a very different society and expectations, so I just want to be very mindful of that as well. But I mean, yeah, I think and I remember I posted about this as well on my Instagram. I made this like post, and I've analyzed a lot of content around this digital analog thing, and I'm very happy to see that all the sort of responses, the instinctual response that any person is having, is pretty positive, which is great, right? I mean, that is what we want. We want people to be aware enough to sort of acknowledge that this is something that they need. So very happy that this is something that is being embraced, and hopefully it will be executed soon. So I think, yeah, that's pretty much everything I had to say on this whole analog trend. And I know it was a very random video. I mean, my thoughts were all over the place, but I think this is such a it's just the kind of topic that that is such a abstract conceptual space. I mean, we all know the answer, but obviously it's far away from happening. So yeah, sorry about the slightly messy structure of the video, but I think apart from that, thank you so much for watching. Bye.